It is a universal human experience to feel that certain moments, for better or worse, left a profound impact on us, whether it be a breakup, a rejection, or a victory, an accomplishment. There are times when emotions are so intense that the memories of these events become a core part of who we are. But what if these memories, sometimes quite intimate or embarrassing, were packaged, sorted, and sold on the market for others to enjoy? What if our entire existence was nothing but a farm to harvest these moments? This is the premise of the surrealist dystopian setting of Burden Street Station, an indie game about a weird iCat librarian and their quest to find the missing god of one of these moment farm planets. Along the way, we will meet many strange characters and peer into their minds to learn new emotions, and use our newfound insight to help them create new moments. Before I get too far into it, please take a moment to read the disclaimer. Also, thank you to Critical Reflex for sponsoring this video. More on that later. The game opens with a montage and a list of commandments that introduce us to how the system works. First, life is a collection of moments. Second, moments are a commodity to be harvested. Third, a librarian's purpose is to sort the harvest. Fourth, the Celestials await their supply. And lastly, do not be inefficient. We then get introduced to our main character, a librarian, whose aforementioned job is to sort moments, which we find out are stored in sentient talking books. The first book tells a story about two people reuniting after a long time, at first not recognizing each other, but soon realizing and embracing. In contrast to the optimism of the first, the second book tells a story about a man going insane because of a conspiracy theory and his partner leaving him. The first book is quite relevant to what comes next, but the other not so much as far as I can tell. I theorize that it may be related to the mystery of this world that will be introduced soon. The first two books are sorted as usual, but our librarian's peaceful and hardworking existence is suddenly interrupted by something strange. The third book refuses to tell the librarian their story. Being a conscientious worker, the librarian immediately moves to report this to his superior, strolling through the endless shelves of books. At the end of the hallway is our boss, who gets angry at us for interrupting his work, stating he doesn't care since he has a much more important matter to attend to. However, instead of sending us away, he realizes that he can make use of us. It seems that even in this retro-futuristic world, minimum wage workplaces are short-staffed, and thus we are drafted for an adventure. He tells us that a world in the collection network has stopped turning, and even worse, the god in charge of building and maintaining that world has gone missing. It is now our mission to get to the bottom of this mystery. The next scene is the two of us on a train, presumably on our way to the problematic world. Our book, named Memo, theorizes that we will never return, on account of knowing too much now that we have seen the outside world. But we can't get too caught up in fear because the conductor is here to collect our ticket. Here is a good time to talk about the central mechanic of the game. Each of our parts, head, body, and legs, allows us to give a different dialogue option. Progressing in the game is a matter of picking the right part for the job. Here, none of the three options work to convince the conductor to let us ride without a ticket, which forces us to look for an alternative route. Near the back of the train, there are two figures. One is Gooby, a nice guy who gives us a hug. The other is Starcy, a celestial who immediately wonders why we're here instead of at home sorting books. They explain that they were on their way back from the archive, but all their favorite moments were out of stock. They usually use the moments to provide content for their blog, which is a great read if you can't afford to buy a moment directly. They also reveal that mortals have guardian angels that watch over them, and make fun of them on image boards. You fire back and ask, how would they feel if their embarrassing moments were sold? To which they defend by saying that they don't have embarrassing moments. This is one of the two big mysteries of this world, the first of course being the disappearance of God, and this new one being the existence of the Celestials, the ones who consume the moments. Who exactly are these beings? I can't imagine that these beings are One Piece-esque celestial dragons who exist as supreme beings. From the comments of the Celestial, it seems that they actually work a job of some sort, watching over the person they are assigned to look over, and they have a currency system since it is possible to not be able to afford moments. If I am to guess, I would suggest that these Celestials might not be all too different from our regular mortals, and this distinction is merely a metaphor for class divide, but I'm not sure. I'll talk a little more about this later. In any case, this interaction with the Celestials starts our first moment extraction. We get a story of best friends who used to talk every night. Then one of the friends turned on the other, perhaps publicly humiliating them. Extracting this moment unlocks a new face part, shameful. We can then use that new face to guilt trip the conductor into letting us ride. When we arrive in town, the game doesn't lead us in any particular direction. You're more or less free to explore. The first thing I do is visit the local fortune teller. She explains that something is wrong with the planet. It never darkens or brightens, and clocks don't tick. She also knows that we came in from the train, but the station on Burden Street has been closed for years. Rather than dwell on this mystery, she continues on with the fortune reading, and in exchange, we extract a moment from her. At the end of a tunnel is a mural of an angel, and hands reaching out like Michelangelo's creation of Adam painting. The moment ends and the fortune teller seems distressed. She tells us that she needs some time to think. It seems that our future is so profound that she won't tell us right away. In the meantime, the second figure I met is a rat with an audio jack for a tail named Lydia. She's an aspiring musician and really wants to play in the local cafe, but doesn't know how to go about it. As a little librarian creature, we offer a very simple answer: just ask. We then extract a moment from them. Their memory involves two figures, a triangle head and a horned figure. They have a brief conversation about how all their ideas and creations fall apart. The other figure asks if they would like help. From this moment, we unlock a new body part, nonconformist. Inside the cafe is a fish bartender, and Lydia, who in fact did manage to get the gig by just asking. In exchange for our help, they offer to teach us how to write poetry. After the lesson, she gives us a smile and we get another moment. The two figures talk about being wrong and things breaking. In response, one of the figures says, "I have one purpose. If I break from doing it, let it be so." From this, we unlock the musician body, which is just a trumpet. At this point, I'm not really sure what to make of these, quote, moments. On one hand, it may be logical to assume that these are memories of the person we are extracting them from. But on the other hand, I have a hard time buying that interpretation. I would suggest that these moments are actually far more related to the disappearance of God than anything. In either case, we will need to collect a few more memories before it becomes clear. Next, at Burden Street itself, when we take an elevator down, a triangle-headed figure comes up and greets us. They ask us what brings us here, and mention that they haven't seen that train pull up since they... Before telling us too much, they stop themselves and tell us to enjoy our stay. Notably, this figure looks identical to the one featured in the moments we have extracted so far. They also make reference to the fact that we shouldn't have been able to come here by train, just like the fortune teller did. This is going to be quite important for theorizing later. There's a few more small interactions, like a community center being full, a construction worker saying his job is super hard and that we're soft, and a cat mourning at a monument, but none lead to a moment extraction. Our next significant conversation comes when at the church we meet a figure named Goodboy, standing outside, who floats down to us and then insults us, or at least tries to. He apologizes for saying bad things, and that he's still trying to get used to a godless world. It seems that he thinks that if there's no God, he should be committing crimes and atrocities, but can't bring himself to do it. Finally, we are able to extract another moment. This one is about two figures yet again. One states, "All you do is lecture me. I can't take this anymore." The other states, "I only want what's best for you." From this, we unlock a cat face, named Domesticated. When you ask Goodboy about his comments that this is a godless world, he states that one day he felt a switch. Everything went cold. A gust of wind came along and suddenly the leaves stopped moving, as did the grass, the trees, the river. All at once, the warmth he felt was gone. He also shares a bit about himself, mentioning a brother he hasn't seen in years, who was cool but never got along with his parents. The brother also would do funny stuff, like stealing mother's clothes and putting them back like a ghost. After this, we can extract another moment, which talks about stepping back from a fire and watching as a world begins to grow. It was so beautiful, but already bricks fell, half-imagined supports gave. I must do something to preserve this terrible majesty. This is the moment that really gives me the impression that these memories might not be solely from the perspective of the people we are talking to. We were told at the beginning of the game that the purpose of God was to build and maintain this world. It seems that whatever caused God to go missing might be related to this world falling apart. Their failures might have also caused conflict with the other figures seen in the memories. Maybe the other person was also a god and tried to help keep this world together, but eventually gave up. And now, the triangle-headed god wanders the streets, or at the very least stopped to say hi to us when we arrived. After this, we can meet Goodboy for a third time near the monument. He talks more about his brother, that he never shared the family's beliefs. His brother also described their life as having been born in a cult. We can use our musical body we got from talking to Lydia and say that born in a cult would make a great song name. This makes Goodboy happy, as it feels like something his brother would have said. But his happiness doesn't last long, as he's still sad about the whole no God equals commit crime thing. We will need to find a different body part to tackle this, so we head out. We find Lydia in the hotel, singing, and she tries to start a conversation about poetry, but at this point in the game, our librarian has learned quite a bit about emotions and can tell something is off. Lydia shares that she's frustrated about the fact she can't make a living off of music, that after all these years, she hasn't been able to find any success. We then ask, why do you make music in the first place? At first, she doesn't know how to respond, but eventually says that she used to make music for her brother, and shares that she ran away from home after her parents blew up over painted nails. She then gets inspired to make a song about it. We then get our second to last moment, a letter from the Grand Archive. We have found great activity from this world, and yet, our scouts have been unable to pick up on any meaningful mortal life to extract moments from. You are operating in Grand Archive plane space. Failure to provide a sufficient amount of moments to extract or result in planar obliteration. Please rectify this issue immediately. We will continue monitoring you. Signed, the Collectors. This moment unlocks the Sage. With this newfound wisdom, we can return to Goodboy and tell him Lydia's song lyrics, which causes him to feel much more at peace with his godlessness. And we get one final moment to extract. 4 stools sit in front of a statue while someone monologues. I spend my days patching holes, righting collapsed buildings, obscured by smoke and shadows, aligning infrastructure, righting crooked paths. I do everything I can to protect them, to sustain them. Oh Amp, I love you. With this final moment, we unlock Ichthyes, which is a fish symbol associated with Jesus. Using this, we return to Lydia and tell them straight up, if you haven't realized it already, that Goodboy is her brother, and that he is here in the city. We also go tell Goodboy that the person who wrote those comforting song lyrics will meet him in the cafe. At last, Lydia has found her brother. Goodboy is a little confused, stating that he has a brother, not a sister, but Lydia simply explains that things changed. Goodboy accepts, stating that he's always wanted a sister and wishes he had grabbed some flower petals or a bracelet or whatever sisters like. Lydia maybe isn't the type, but is happy that Goodboy is trying. Lydia also tells Goodboy that just because God isn't here, that doesn't mean he needs to start committing crimes. Lastly, they make plans to catch up after all these years. At the very start of the game, the first book we were introduced to spoke of two people reuniting, at first not recognizing each other. This is that moment. Goodboy didn't recognize Lydia because of the transition, and Lydia didn't know he was here, since he spent most of his time at the local church. At last, they reunite, creating a heartfelt moment suitable for consumption by Celestials. The other book, the one about a man going crazy because of a conspiracy theory and his partner leaving him, is a lot harder to place because I don't think we have enough context yet. At this point in the game, I would theorize that the book is referring to the god of this world, or perhaps the gods, plural. It's possible that the triangle-headed figure we saw in the elevator is wandering the city, not overseeing it despite being present in many of the moments. It's possible that things fell apart, and the god of this world simply felt they were unable to fix it and walked out, causing time to grind to a halt. Why the world might have started falling apart may be due to God losing faith in the system he oversaw. They might have felt that the moments being harvested were too beautiful to be mindlessly harvested for Celestials to consume, and would rather the world end than being their slave. If anything, the whole idea of harvesting moments reminds me a lot of social media, with the rich recording the suffering of the unfortunate for their own entertainment. This would line up well with what I think to be the game's main theme, connection, as seen by the story of Goodboy and Lydia. Even without their stories being harvested for consumption, they are able to connect for connection's sake. In any case, with this heartfelt reunion, our librarian heart has grown 3 times in size, and so has our emotional intelligence. We're now likely ready to take on the far greater challenge of reuniting this world with its god. However, this is where the game ends, for now. Which brings me to the sponsor of today's video, Critical Reflex, a publisher known for helping manage hit titles such as Mouthwashing, No I'm Not Human, and the topic of today's video, Burden Street Station. I'm excited to announce that Critical Reflex has asked me to be one of the first channels to cover the full release of Burden Street Station on May 21st. So if you thought the game so far has been interesting, be sure to come back in 2 weeks. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss my coverage of it, and I've linked to the game's Steam page in the pinned comment below if you want to play it yourself when it releases. If you had any theories or comments about the game, I'd love to hear them. Like I mentioned earlier, I will be covering the full release of the game when it comes out, so I could discuss anything you feel like I missed in this video. And with that, I think I've said all I want to say about Burden Street Station for now. If you liked the video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you to my generous Patreon and Ko-Fi supporters, and see you next time.